Have you ever walked into a place that felt wrong, where the air was too still, the silence too loud, and the walls seemed to breathe around you? This is a story of a school hidden deep in the lush hills of Assam, India. A school that doesn't just haunt people, it marks them. It starts with faint scratches, strange whispers, a pale little girl staring from behind a window. This isn't just a ghost story. This is a story about something that chooses you, follows you, and never lets go. Welcome to Beauty and the Beasts, where we do skincare and tell real-life spooky stories at the same time. And tonight, we're opening the doors to the school that marks you. Before we get into today's dark horror story, can we take a quick detour to something less creepy? I would like to introduce the beauty gadgets that I use. These gadgets are my secret weapons because behind every true crime horror storyteller is a tired face that's pretending it had 8 hours of sleep. So let me start with this one. This is the Beautyronics USB EMS face massager. Super lightweight, USB rechargeable, and perfect for face lifting, blood circulation, and depuffing. It's like giving your face a mini gym session. I use this one while editing or reading through some horrifying case notes. And then we have the Anlan hot and cool Guasha device. Warm mode opens up your pores and helps your serum absorb like magic. And cool mode is so satisfying. And I actually carry this one around because it's compact and it has a cap. So you don't have to worry about dirtying the part that you use on your face directly. Now, while the previous ones are mostly for massaging purposes, let me introduce you to my ride or die, the Medicube Age R Pro. This device is a little bit expensive, but if you use it, you will just know why. This one combines radio frequency, EMS, and LED therapy, basically all the things you would pay huge money for at a clinic. And I don't have the time and money for that. So I just sit in my pajamas, turn this on, and do my anti-aging routine while my baby naps. Anyways, you can buy these 3 products from YesStyle, which is basically my go-to for all things K-beauty, Asian beauty. And today, I've got something extra special for you. If you have been eyeing the Medicube Age R Pro, you can now get 20% off with my exclusive community discount code. I think this one is the latest model from Medicube, and it is a total game changer. So yeah, go buy it if you can. And plus, you can still use my custom YesStyle code for everything else from fashion to skincare and beyond. Treat yourself to a little skincare between the chaos because in this channel, it's all goosebumps and cold sweat. Okay, let's get back to the story. This story was sent to me by one of you guys through email. It's from someone who asked me to keep her real name private, so let's just call her Nara. Nara grew up in India, in a region called Assam. It's in the northeastern part of the country. And if you've ever heard of Assam, you probably know it's famous for its wildlife. Assam tea plantations, and stunning national parks. It's the kind of place where everything looks peaceful, almost magical. But sometimes the most beautiful places can also hide the most unseen, unsettling things. This story she shared, it was her first real encounter with the spirit world. It happened when she was just in 6th grade. But later, as she got older and thought back, she realized the signs had always been there. Little things she didn't notice back then, but things that now makes perfect sense. Nara lived with her mom, her dad, and her younger brother. A normal family living a simple life. Her mom worked as a school teacher, and the school she taught at, that place felt like it belonged in a horror film. The building was old, and not just old in a charming way. I'm talking walls cracked open, chunks missing, bricks exposed like bones under decaying skin. And the history of this place, no one really talked about it. And maybe that's what made it worse. It felt like the building itself held memories that didn't want to stay buried. The school stood alone, surrounded by a wide, empty field. And just beyond that, towering trees. Strange thing was, those trees would sway, even when the wind was completely still. By day, the school seemed normal, old, but still alive with noise. Kids laughing, footsteps echoing in the halls, teachers talking. But the moment the sun started to go down, something changed. Like someone flipped a switch and transported the whole area into a different realm. They had some security lights installed around the building, but they didn't help much. When the last bell rang and people left, that place turned completely silent. But not the comforting kind of silence. This one made your spine tingle. It was thick, heavy, like something invisible was watching from the dark. And if you linger too long, you'd start to hear things. Soft whispers coming from the trees. Something was there. You couldn't see it, but you could feel it, like a shadow breathing just over your shoulder. Now, despite all that, the school still held events like any other school. One of the most popular ones was the annual farewell celebration, kind of like a festival with performances, food stalls, music, and dancing. Nara and her family always went. Her mom was a teacher, after all. During the day, it was fun, lively, colorful, filled with laughter and the sound of music playing through old speakers. Families walking around, students performing, people eating, chatting, so it felt safe. But when night started to fall and the crowd slowly began to leave, that same unsettling stillness would creep back in. The music would fade, the laughter would die down, and suddenly you would feel that shift again. After the event, just before it was getting too dark, Nara hurried back home with her family. Thankfully, she didn't have to stay too late, and she didn't want to. She got home, she changed into her pajamas, and began winding down for bed. But as she stood in front of the mirror, something caught her eye, right there near her nose. Scratches, faint but sharp scratches, thin red lines, like something had dragged tiny claws across her skin. At first, she thought, what the hell is this? It looked like a cat scratch, but there was no cat around. She hadn't played with any animals that day, she hadn't bumped into anything, and they didn't look like the accidental kind of scratch you get from your own fingernails, or from heat rash or dry skin. These were different. Then it hit her. She had seen these before. Every time she visited the school at night, she would come home and find these exact same kinds of scratches on her face. She reached up and touched them, and they stung. That raw, prickling kind of pain you get from a fresh wound. And it felt weird, like as if something she couldn't see, had dragged sharp fingers across her skin. And the scariest part was the scratches always appeared in the same spot, like every single time. During the day, she'd been to that school countless times. She explored the halls, touched the old desks, pressed her fingers against cracked walls, and even wandered near the trees. But she never once came home with so much as a bruise or a scrape. But only at night, when the light faded and that eerie silence returned, something seemed to mark her. And at first, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe she scratched herself in her sleep and only noticed it afterward. Maybe it was a skin allergy. Maybe it was just dry air or something in the atmosphere. But no matter how much she tried to explain it away, deep down, she knew this wasn't accidental. It wasn't a coincidence. And it wasn't her imagination, because those scratches didn't heal fast. They lingered, raw, red, and sore. And every time she looked in the mirror, it felt like they were saying, "I'm here." She didn't know what was leaving those marks, but whatever it was, it wanted her to remember. What was that? Was it just coincidence? I don't know. And a few days later, one evening, Nara visited the school with her mother again. The semester break was almost over, and her mother needed to tidy up her classroom and rearrange teaching materials. The building was mostly empty, echoing faintly with distant footsteps and the creak of aging walls. While her mother busied herself inside her classroom, Nara wandered off. Curiosity had always tugged at her. And something about the back corridor of the school had always caught her attention. A wing that was darker, colder, and strangely silent, even during the day. She walked slowly, her shoes clicking softly on the worn floor tiles. The hallway grew narrower and dimmer as she passed by unused storage rooms and forgotten bulletin boards covered in curled, yellowing paper. Then she passed a large window, the kind that looked into the old staff lounge, a room supposedly sealed off for years. And that is when she saw someone, a little girl standing just behind the glass, still, pale, motionless. Her skin almost looked grayish-white. Her eyes were unnaturally wide, glassy, and fixed directly on Nara, but empty, as if looking through her, not at her. She was wearing a faded, old-fashioned school uniform, not the kind students wore anymore, something from decades ago. Nara froze. The girl didn't blink. She didn't move. Her small hands rested against the glass, one of them smudged faintly with dirt, as if she had been trying to press her way out. And just as Nara whispered, "Hello," the girl faded. Not turned or walked away. She just melted into the dimness behind her, dissolving like smoke into shadow. Nara stood there, rooted in place, her eyes wide in disbelief. When she ran back to her mother and nervously asked if any other children were still in the building, her mother simply shook her head. "No one's there, sweetheart. Why?" And later that week, still shaken, Nara asked one of the teachers about the old staff room. And the woman's face changed immediately. Her expression was tight and cautious. She hesitated and then muttered quietly, "That wing has been locked for years. No one has used it since the accident." But when Nara asked, "What accident?" the teacher didn't answer, and she just walked away. And no one ever explained what had happened. No one ever talked about that wing again. But the image of that little girl, those wide, hollow eyes, would haunt Nara for years. And after that weird incident, months passed, but the feeling never left her. There was something wrong with that school, something hiding beneath the surface, something watching from behind walls or glass. And one night, she and her friend Mira decided to push their curiosity even further. There was a school event that evening. Music, lights, students laughing. Everything felt festive and ordinary. But while the others were distracted by performances and snacks, Nara and Mira slipped away. They crept toward one of the classrooms near the back of the school, and no one used that room anymore. But that night, for reasons they couldn't explain, the door was slightly ajar. They looked at each other, unsure. Mira smirked and said, "Let's just peek inside. What's the worst that could happen?" So they did. And the moment they stepped in, the door slammed shut behind them with a loud, violent bang. And there was no wind, nothing that could have caused it. And suddenly, the air inside the room shifted. The temperature dropped so fast. It was like walking into a freezer. Nara's skin erupted in goosebumps. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice was shaking. And then they heard it. A voice, more like a whisper, low, broken, raspy, "Get out." It came from the back corner of the room, near the boarded-up window, but no one was there. The air felt heavier by the second, like the room itself was closing in around them. And then they saw something. A shadow. Not a figure, not a person, just a shape, long and hunched, crawling across the wall. Not walking, dragging itself across the surface like it had no bones to stand on. The girls screamed. Nara grabbed the door handle, twisting and pulling until finally it gave way. They burst out of the room, running back toward the lights and sound of the event. They didn't speak for the rest of the evening. But the haunting wasn't over. Mira called her in a whisper. "I woke up with dirt under my nails," she said. Her voice was trembling. "I didn't go outside. I didn't touch anything." And then she told her there were scratches across her back, like deep ones, angry ones, the same kind Nara had seen so many times before. Only this time they were longer, more violent, as if whatever was in that room hadn't just scared them, it had followed them. And from that strange day, years passed. Life moved on, but the memories of those nights never really left her. The scratches, the silence, the warnings, and the signs, they stayed buried in the corners of her mind. She tried to convince herself it had all been in her head, maybe just an overactive imagination fueled by ghost stories and horror movies. That's what she kept telling herself over and over, until one night something shattered that illusion. She was lying in bed, scrolling mindlessly through YouTube, just trying to kill time, nothing serious. And then she stumbled across a video, a woman casually filming herself while walking past a graveyard. It wasn't even a ghost hunting video or anything dramatic. The woman was just walking, sharing some local myths and legends surrounding the area. A calm, steady voice, nothing particularly spooky. She wasn't touching anything. She didn't react to anything strange. There was nothing around her. Just her voice, her footsteps, and the camera. But then, right there on the screen, something happened. Red, thin lines began to appear on the woman's skin, like right in front of Nara's eyes. Fresh scratches blooming out of nowhere, as if something invisible had reached out and touched her. Nara felt her breath catch. Her blood turned cold because those marks, they looked exactly like the ones she used to get. In that moment, everything came rushing back. The sting of those unseen scratches, the feeling of being watched, the whispers in the trees, the little girl, and that mysterious figure she saw in that school. She strolled straight into the comment section, heart racing. She was desperate to see if anyone else noticed the scratches and if anyone had answers. She scrolled through the comments. Someone said it was a demonic mark. When a spirit attaches itself to you, it leaves its sign. And that is when everything clicked. It was all connected. Something lives in that school. It doesn't just haunt the school, it marks people. And Nara, she was one of the first to be marked. Maybe one of many. And that is the end of today's story. Wild, isn't it? Nara thought she had walked away, that whatever haunted that school was in the past, but some things don't stay buried in old buildings. Some things follow you, like a scratch on your skin that wasn't there yesterday. If you guys have your own experiences with spiritual encounters or anything spooky, you can share it with me, and I will share your stories with our viewers. Thank you for joining me today on Beauty and the Beasts, and I will be back with more spine-tingling stories next time. Until then, bye.